Solanandana Bhajana Ranjana Solanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Jai Vishnupad Pranamahamsa Prabhu Jakacharya Asatursa Dashishiman His Divine Grace to the A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananti Kota Vaishnavanda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Iskon Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinas Samakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Ki Jai Shri Maya Purnavidam Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 21. Does anybody know? It's okay. It's been opened up to you. Does anybody know what verse we're on today? You're on text 1?
Starting the chapter 21, 1 to 6, verse 6.
So chapter, which chapter?
Is the one that is marked 21.
21st, 21 chapter.
Okay, so it's text 1.
Yes.
Okay. Alrighty. Shri Sukha Vacha Vithathasya Sutan Manyor Brhat Satro Jayas Tata Mahaviryo Naro Garga Sankatis Tu Naratmaja Sri Sukha Vacha Vitasya Sutan Manyor Brihat Kshatro Jayastata Mahaviryo Naro Garga Sankatis Tu Naratmaja Sri Sukha Vacha Vitasya Sutan Manyor Brihat Kshatro Jayastataha Mahaviryo Naro Garga Sankatis Tu Naratmajaha Shri Sukha Vacha Vitasya Sutan Manyor Bhaksatro Jayastataha Mahaviryo Naro Garga Sankritistu Naratmajaha.
Shuka Vacha Tatasya Sutanmanyo Yakshatu Jayastataha Mahaviryo Narogaga Sankritistu Naratmajaha
Shri Sukha Uvacha Tatasya Sutanmanyo Yakshatu Jayastata Mahaviryo Narogaga Sankritistu Naratmajaha.
Mataji's. Sri Sukha Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Vitatasya Vitata Avitata Bharadvaj, who was accepted in the family of Maharaj Bharat under special circumstances of disappointment. Sutat, from the sun. Manyo, ne manyu. Brihat ksatra. Jaya, jaya. Tata, from him. Mahavirya, mahavirya. Nara, nara. Garga, garga. Sankati, sankati. Tu, certainly. Nara Atmaja, the son of Nara. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. And there's no purport for quite some while, so I'll just read through.
That's why we go until 6. 1 to 6. The 6.
Oh, 1 to 6. All right. Oh yeah, okay. Sukadeva Goswami said, because Bharadvaj was delivered by the Marut demigods, he was known as Vitata. The son of Vitata was Manu, and from Manu came 5 sons, Brihat Ksatra, Jaya, Mahavirya, Nara, and Garga. Of these 5, the one known as Nara had a son named Sankriti. Text 2. O Maharaj Parikshit, descendant of Pandu, Sankriti had 2 sons named Guru and Rantidev. Rantidev is famous in both this world and the next, for he is glorified not only in human society, but also in the society of the demigods. Text 3, 4, and 5. Rantidev never endeavored to earn anything. He would enjoy whatever he got by the arrangement of providence. But when guests came, he would give them everything. Thus, considerable suffering along with the members of his family. Indeed, he and his family members shivered for want of food and water. When we fast for one day, Janmashtami, it's like, not easy. 48 days here.
More than Jesus Christ. More than Jesus Christ.
More than Jesus Christ. He fasted for what?
40.
40, okay. In the morning, Rantidev received some water and some foodstuffs made with milk and ghee. So this is after his 48 days of fasting. But when he and his family were about to eat, a Brahmana guest arrived. Text 6. Because Rantidev perceived the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead everywhere, and in every living entity, he received the guest with faith and respect and gave him a share of the food. The Brahmana ate his share and then went away. Purport. Rantidev perceived the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every living being. But he never thought that because the Supreme Lord is present in every living being must be God. Nor did he distinguish between one living being and another. He perceived the presence of the Lord both in the Brahmana and in the Chandala. This is the true vision of equality, as confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 5, Brahmadega. Suni chaiva sapake cha pandita samadarsana. The humble sage, by virtue of knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater, outcast. A pundit, or learned person, perceives the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every living being. Therefore, although it has now become fashionable to give preference to the so-called Daridra Narayan, or poor Narayan, Rantidev had no reason to give preference to any one person. The idea that because Narayan is present in the heart of one who is Daridra, or poor, the poor man should be called Daridra Narayan is a wrong conception. By such logic, because the Lord is present within the hearts of the dogs and hogs would also be Narayan. One should not mistakenly think that Rantidev subscribed to this view. Rather, he saw everyone as part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hari Sambandhi Vastunaha. It is not that everyone is the Supreme Godhead. Such a theory, which is propounded by the Mayavad philosophy, is always misleading, and Rantidev would never have accepted it. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshrum Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Kotuvachalang Pangundang Hayate Gurim Yat Kripa Tadaham Bande Shigurum Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This very elevated consciousness of Rantidev is natural for everyone, because we're all part of Krishna. And what is the nature of the soul? Eternality, knowledge, and bliss, happiness. So we all have this this knowledge, this understanding. Well, it's a little covered now. But this knowledge of the soul, knowledge of God, knowledge of devotional service, it's there within all living entities. And this process of Krishna consciousness is meant to bring this out. But with Rantidev, it's there. He understands that he's a soul and that everyone is a soul. And therefore he has respect for everyone. Complete understanding that he's the soul within. He's not the body. This is the main disease in the world, is people are thinking that I'm Russian, I'm French, I'm black, I'm white, I'm brown. But no, we're all souls within. The body is just as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Dehinosmin yatha dehe, the soul is going through the body from boyhood to youth to old age. The body dies, the soul continues. And he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Isvara sarvabhutanam hridasarjina tustati brahmayan sarvabhutana yantraudhanimaya. That the Supreme Lord is seated within the hearts of all living entities who are, and the body is like I am seated within the hearts of all, and directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as though on a machine made of the material energy. So this body is like a machine, it's yantra. It's a machine, it's not who we actually are. And this body, I mean, you can see this body. Anybody know how many bones there are in our bodies? Anybody know? Each of us have a certain amount of bones, 206 bones in our body. And the bones make the frame of the machine. Without the bones in the body, what would the body be? It'd be a blob. So this keeps the body upright. So there's bones, there's the heart, which the heart is what keeps it. It's actually always running. It's always going. It's always working. The heart. You know, the body, we got to take rest. But when we're resting, the heart's still working. It's always working. And believe it or not, the blood vessels are so fine. They're so intricate that I was looking this up. The blood veins in our body can go around the planet twice. That's how fine they are. So there's blood, there's bones, there's kidneys, there's all these, there's the brain. So this is the machine. But we're not this machine. We're the soul within. There's an interesting show I saw. And you ever heard this show called The Twilight Zone? Okay, The Twilight Zone is a science fiction series back in America many years ago. But some of the episodes in this Twilight Zone could have been in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'm going to tell you about one of them. It's science fiction, so it's not true. It's science fiction shows. So there was a person who was, he was a big criminal in America. Big criminal. So they decided to give him a special punishment. They decided to take him to another planet and just leave him there. Now one might think, well, hey, got my own planet, it's not too bad. But they left him there. He's there alone on the planet. So, he's batty. Batty means you go a little nuts, he's just there by himself. So every 2 months, they would come and they would leave some food and water for him. But when they would come and they would leave the food and water, then they're leaving, he would tell them, no, please don't leave, please stay here. Talk to me, come on, let's play some checkers or something. Please don't leave me here alone. No, gotta go. So they're doing this for years, and it's kind of wearing on them. You can imagine. But one time they arrive and they leave a box. They leave a box with him. And they said, well, this might help you out a bit. So he left the box. He opens the box, and it's a robot. it's a robot that hasn't been put together yet. So the instructions are there how to put the robot together. So he puts the robot together, and it's a woman. But then he says, this is just a joke, it's just a machine. And he pushed the machine, and it fell down, and then the robot woman said, "You hurt me." He said, "What do you mean I hurt you? You're just a machine, you're just a robot." "Well, I'm a special robot. You hurt me." And then he said, "Well, I'm sorry." And then he started talking. He had someone to talk to. So it's big relief. Yeah. So it was incredible relief. So he was telling her about America and the planet that he's on, been on there for years. And so now it was a bit of a relief for him. So this is going on for years. And then one time, the people that usually drop off the food and water, they came and they said, "Listen, your sentence has been removed. We're taking you to America." And he was so happy. "I'm going back to America." And he told the robot, "I'm going back, they're letting me back, I'm going back to America. I'll take you too, I'll show you America, you'll love it." And she was excited, "Yeah, I want to see it too." And one of the guys said, "I was afraid that was going to happen." What he was afraid of happening is that he's going to start thinking that the robot is real. So he took out a gun to shoot the robot. And the guy said, "This looks a little more comfortable. This one here is more like spikes." Because all the leaves are hard. So the guy put out the gun to shoot the robot, and the prisoner said, No, don't shoot, that's my friend." But he shot. And then when he shot, he saw that it was just springs and wires, and it was just machinery. And the prisoner said, "Wow, it wasn't real. I thought it was real. It was just a robot." He forgot that it was just a robot. So sometimes we also forget that this body is a machine. This is not who we are at all. I remember one time I was in Los Angeles speaking to one student at the restaurant, explaining how we're not the body. And he said, "Aren't we just a little bit the material body?" I said, "Sorry, we're not at all the material body, at all. We're the soul within, 100% soul, not the body at all." So it's kind of hard for people to grasp, but that's the reality. You know, this is it's a machine, but it has very good purpose. This machine is so amazing. I mean, how many machines are there that after they're built, they grow? So this body, and also generally when a machine is built, they go through a conveyor belt, and things are put on. They're, like a car. There's a system where they put one part on, then put another part on. What do they call it?
Assembly line.
Assembly line. There's an assembly line where the parts are put on gradually. But this machine is in the womb of the mother, and all the parts are growing at the same time in the womb. I mean, that's incredible technology. The body is growing in the womb. Everything, the brain and the hands and the feet, the little toes, everything is growing. And then it comes out of the womb, continues growing. Each machine has a particular personality. And some are very intelligent, some are not so intelligent. Some have amazing abilities, Einstein and this incredible brain, incredible abilities. So this is the engineering of Krishna. Krishna is the best engineer. He knows what he's doing. So, also, it's stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Nurdeham adyang sulabhang sudurlabham plabham sukapam guru karharam. This body is like a boat that can help us cross over the vast ocean of material existence. And the spiritual master, he's the captain. And the favorable winds are the Vedic literatures. So this example is being given thousands of years ago, before there was boats with engines. Now they have these boats that can cross the ocean in 18 days or something, 20 days. But this example is given before there was any engine. So imagine you have a boat out there in the middle of the ocean, and you wind, and no motor in the boat. Where's the boat going to go? It's not going to go anywhere, because you got to have wind, right? And even if you have wind and you have a boat, if you don't have a captain, then who's going to navigate? It's just going to go around in circles. Navigator is necessary. So the spiritual master, he's the navigator. He gets us going in the right direction, right? Krishna also, he keeps us going in the right direction. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he says in one purport that the spiritual master, he's compared to gold. And Krishna, he's compared to a diamond. If you have a gold ring and you put a diamond, a beautiful diamond, sometimes they have these blue diamonds, you put a beautiful diamond in that gold ring, they complement each other, they're beautiful, right? So these books are filled with wisdom given to us by Krishna and by Srila Prabhupada, the commentary by Srila Prabhupada. And if we follow the teachings, actually these books are guidelines for the human form of life. And if we just follow the teachings carefully, then this will guide us back to the spiritual world. This is the result of hearing nicely. And here we're hearing how Rantidev was such a great devotee that he saw the soul within everyone, and he was very austere also. 48 days, like, it's another age, when people could do that. It's like,
You died before now.
huh?
You died before now in Kali Yuga.
Oh yeah,
You died before.
yeah.
Not everyone.
Well, yeah, there's breatharians, right? There's people that can live.
Without water, without water you cannot eat. No, without water you cannot eat.
Well, there's,
Without water.
yeah. Well, for some time. Anyway, we'll discuss that later. But very austere. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's stated, Nayam deham dehabhajam daloke custom kaman arhate vijudane. Depodivyang putikayena sadam sudyad yasmad brahmasokyam tvarantam. Lord Jashabdev, he says, of persons that have accepted material bodies, persons who have accepted the human form of life shouldn't waste their time in engaging in the activities of the animals. What are the activities of the animals? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Right? This is the activities of the animals. But they should engage in austerity. And by austerity, one becomes purified. One understands his spiritual nature, understands the nature of Krishna, engages in devotional service, and then experiences unlimited happiness. Everybody wants happiness, but the soul wants happiness which is always increasing, right? But the nature of the happiness in this world is it comes to a certain level and it decreases. And it's not even really happiness. Real happiness is on the spiritual platform, not on the bodily platform. So austerity is very important. And Srila Prabhupada, he wrote the Gurukul teachers, teach the children the joy of austerity. Now generally we don't think of austerity as being joyful, but it is actually. Just like many of us, we wake up now early and we go to Mangalartik at 4:30. But many of us used to go to sleep at that time before, joining the Hare Krishna movement. Some people go to sleep at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning. Now we're waking up even before that. So in the beginning, it's a little difficult, just like Krishna says that which is like poison in the beginning and nectar in the end is the mode of goodness. And that which is like nectar in the beginning and poison in the end, this is the mode of passion. So it may be a little bitter in the beginning, just like book distribution, it can be a little difficult in the beginning, but if one sticks to it, it becomes nectar. And therefore we have a book called The Nectar of Book Distribution. So why is it called the nectar of book distribution? It's not such an easy service. Because Krishna is pleased. And if we please Krishna, then what else is there to achieve? Krishna reciprocates. And you actually feel the presence of Krishna. Just like one devotee once said, if you want to meet Krishna, go on book distribution. And therefore it's stated in the Bhagavatam that Lord Vishnu, he says, I'm not in Vaikuntha, or Krishna says, I'm not in Vaikuntha, I'm not in the hearts of the yogis, but I am wherever my devotees are spreading my glories. So he's there. Wherever we're spreading the glories of Krishna, he's there. And he appreciates it. Because believe it or not, Krishna has a problem. Who would think? Krishna, God, has a problem. Anybody know what his problem is? Us. We're the problem. We're his sons and daughters. We've given up his service and came here trying to be God, wasting our time. So he comes to solve the problem. He says, Yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam sujamyam. Whenever and wherever there's a predominant rise of irreligion and a decline in religious practice, at the time I descend myself. He comes to solve the problem. He comes and he gives us the Bhagavad Gita to give us direction. He sends his pure devotees, Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, so many pure devotees Krishna sends to help solve the problem. So if we're intelligent, we'll take Krishna's message, we'll take the message of the Bhagavatam, the message of the Bhagavad Gita, and we'll embrace it. We'll take it and just follow the teachings. If we do that, then that's the perfection. Now in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains different types of austerity. Just like here, Rantidev, he's doing a bodily austerity, fasting 48 days. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains Deva Sariram Tapa Ushate. There's 5 austerities of the body. The first austerity is to offer respects to God, Deva, Dvija, to the Brahmanas, Guru, to saintly persons, and to one's relatives, mother and father. That's why you see in India, people are very respectful to the parents, because it's there in the Bhagavad Gita. So to be respectful to seniors, to superiors, especially to God. I remember when I was a young, puffed up, arrogant little kid, about 12 years old, I said, I'll never bow down to anyone. And then Krishna humbled me, and I bow down all the time now. And it's good to bow down to Krishna, to bow down to Prabhupada, to bow down to devotees. This is good. This helps us to develop humility. It's very important. Humility is very important. It's described that Krishna is conquered and overwhelmed by pure devotion and humility. Very important aspect of devotional service. So that's the first austerity of the body. Deva, Dvija, Guru, Pragya, Pujanam, Saucham, to be clean. Sometimes it's an austerity, just like here in France. I heard that perfume began in France, yeah, because people weren't taking showers as often as they should. Actually, in Europe in general, it was like that. I heard that they thought that it was unhealthy to bathe, like a few hundred years ago. Anybody ever heard that? Is that? Yeah? No? So sometimes it's an austerity to bathe, to be clean. But we're clean to please Krishna, and also just to be healthy. Yeah, it's healthy. Deva Dvija Guru Prajna Pujanam Saucham Arjavam, to live simply. Just like our motto in Krishna consciousness is simple living and I think. Yeah. So we live simply, and we think highly. We're reading Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and brahmacharyam, to be celibate. It's an austerity, especially nowadays. People have just gone wild. So it's an austerity. These are austerities of the body. There's austerities of the speech. Anugvegang krang vakyam satyam priyam hitangchyat swagabhyasanam chaivan vanmayam tab uchyate. To speak that which is not agitating to others. Sometimes someone might say something to us, and we want to say something back to them. You know, they agitate us, and we want to say something to agitate them. But no, austerity of the speech is to speak in a way that is not agitating to others. Yeah. Control the tongue. Yeah. Yeah. Tolerance. Yeah. Anugrevan karang vakyam satyam, to speak that which is truthful. Like there's one person who's famous for never telling a lie. Who was that? Yudhisthira. So if you have one person that's famous for never telling a lie, what does that say about everybody else? If you have one person that doesn't lie, that means everybody else lies. Of course, there's black lies and white lies. There's really bad lies, and there's some that aren't so bad. So this is the nature. Anurvegam karang vakyam satyam priyam, to speak that which is pleasing. To speak that which is pleasing. And to speak that which is beneficial. And to always be repeating the Vedic literature. These are the 5 austerities of the tongue, of speech. But sometimes, when we're preaching to someone, it's not pleasing. They might get agitated. So what to do? You have to speak in such a way that it's not agitating, but the message gets across. That's called the art of preaching. Yeah. Sometimes preaching means knowing what not to say, knowing what to say and what not to say. Yeah. It's the art of preaching. Prabhupada was expert. Let me tell you a nice little Prabhupada pastime. You want to hear a Prabhupada pastime? Yeah. This is back in 1970. About 1970. Prabhupada had left America and gone back to India. He wanted to start his preaching in India. So he asked the temple presidents in America to send one good man from each temple to India who would be preaching in India. So one of the persons that went there, his name was Giriraj, brahmachari, had not taken sannyas yet. So he was the son of a very wealthy family. Now that he had become a Hare Krishna devotee, that was already difficult. But now he's also in India, other side of the planet, very difficult. So they flew to India to try to get him to go back to America. So he got the flight information, picked him up at the airport. Immediately, the parents are trying to convince him to go back to America. But he wanted to stay. So then the father said, can you arrange a meeting with your guru? I want to speak to him. And they said, yes, no problem. So Prabhupada was there with the parents and Giriraj and his servant. So the father said, you know, this disciple of yours, Giriraj, he's my only son. And it's very difficult for us that he's here on the other side of the planet. Can you please send him back to America? So Prabhupada said to Giriraj, would you like to go back to America? And Giriraj said, no, Prabhupada, I want to stay here. So Prabhupada said to the parents, you don't want me to force him, do you? And they said, no. Because there's the saying in America, a man forced against his will is of the same opinion still. So it probably, a man forced against his will is of the same opinion still. So he'd probably leave anyway. So it was understood he's staying. So then Prabhupada said to Giriraj, why don't you take your parents to Nepal, foothills of the Himalaya, Kathmandu. They have nice resorts there, spend a week with them. And he said, yes, I can do that. So they did that. They went to Nepal. The parents were very happy, spent some time with Giriraj. And then they went back to Bombay, and Giriraj wanted the parents to spend a little time with Prabhupada, some purification. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Sister Hoy. Lavamata Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Just a moment's association with a pure devotee can bring all perfection. So he arranged that. So Prabhupada is there with the parents, and Prabhupada didn't preach to them at all. He just made friends with them. He was just talking small talk, differences between America and India, joking with them. Prabhupada had an amazing sense of humor. So when they left, the parents were very happy. And the servant said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you amaze me. Everybody loves you so much. And Prabhupada replied, that's because I love everyone so much. This is a pure devotee. So if you love Krishna, then you love everyone. Because everyone, as it's said here, everyone is part of Krishna. It's like Prabhupada, he sent some devotees to Africa to preach. But they were just preaching to the Indians, because there's a lot of Indians in Africa also. And Prabhupada said, why aren't you preaching to the Africans? Oh, Prabhupada, they're not that interested. And Prabhupada said, no, open the doors for the Africans. And they did. And when they did, the temple filled up with Africans. And there was some African there that knew English also, and Prabhupada would speak and he would translate. And now in Africa there's so many African devotees. Because Prabhupada was Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. He saw the soul in everyone. He didn't see just the dress. He didn't see the external, the covering. He saw the soul. And that's why this movement grew so much. Because he was a pure soul, a pure devotee of Krishna, and saw the soul beyond the covering. And he knew that this practice of Krishna consciousness, this will bring happiness. This will relieve them of their suffering. So much suffering in this world. So by this book distribution, people get an opportunity to find out that they're actually the soul within. They're part of the Supreme Soul. And by serving that Supreme Soul, we experience this unlimited happiness that we're all searching for. So the last verse, there's 3 different types of austerity. Then there's the austerity of the mind. So you get the austerity of the body, austerity of speech, then there's austerity of the mind. Mana prasadak saumyadvam maunam atma vinigraha bhava sangsir ichita tapo manasam uchtate. The first austerity of the mind is to be satisfied in Krishna consciousness. Some devotees, they think there's maybe something more out there. And when they joined, they weren't so together, and now they join. I've joined the Hare Krishna movement. Now I'm a little more together. Let me give it another try. Let me give it another try to enjoy the material world. But no, the austerity of the mind is to be satisfied in serving Krishna. This is the satisfaction of the soul. We're not going to be satisfied by trying to satisfy the senses, which we aren't. We're not the senses, we're not the mind, we're not this body, we're the soul within. And if we understand this, and we understand Krishna's Supreme Soul, and we serve Krishna, we'll experience unlimited happiness and complete, total satisfaction. There used to be a song, probably some of you, I can't no satisfaction. And they would sing, yeah, I can't get no satisfaction. That's the material world. And they could understand. There is no satisfaction in the material world. But in serving Krishna, in pure service to Krishna, there's satisfaction. So that's the first austerity of the mind. Mana prasadak saumyadvam monam atma vinigraha. To be honest, that's another austerity of the mind. Not only being honest with others, but being honest with ourselves. Sometimes we get this idea that we're very advanced in our spiritual journey. But as I mentioned earlier, humility is a key factor in our advancement in spiritual life. And therefore a devotee, a pure devotee, never even thinks he's a devotee. Just like Krishnadas Kaviraj, such a great devotee, but he thought himself lower than a worm in stool. And anybody that chants my name loses all spiritual credit. Now he might have been the greatest devotee on the planet. He wrote the Chaitanya Charitamrita, such an exalted devotee, but he was so humble. Didn't even think he was a devotee. And one devotee wrote a letter to Prabhupada, a nice poem to Prabhupada, beautiful poem. But in the poem, he says, I'm a devotee of Krishna. So Prabhupada wrote back to this devotee and said, it's a very beautiful poem, nice poem, but a devotee never thinks he's a devotee. He's always trying to become a devotee. He doesn't think he's achieved. It's not easy to be a devotee. So this is humility, honesty. We're very insignificant, very small. We're so small that I don't even see any of you. You don't even see me. You see the body, but we're so small. We're so small that we're 1/10,000 the size of a tip of a hair. We're so small you can't even be seen. Even the most powerful microscope can't show who we are. We're so small because we're not material, we're spiritual. As Prabhupada said, spiritual atoms, very small, smaller than the atom. So, mana prasadak saumyadvam monam. Monam means gravity, grave. Like there was one instance where Prabhupada was in India and they were in one city. Devotees were traveling around and they were in one city, and one devotee saw a newspaper article, and in the newspaper article it mentioned how there was one yogi there that had not spoken for 20 monam, not speaking. So Prabhupada looked at the article and he said, actually, this is good. All these so-called yogis, they should accept this vow of monam. They shouldn't speak. Because when they do speak, they speak all nonsense. There is a person he was a so-called scholar, Sanskrit scholar, so he translated the Bhagavad Gita, and he commented. And in the comment of this verse, Sarva dharmam parityajya, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender to me, all free from all sinful reaction, do not fear. In the commentary, he says, Krishna is asking for too much. That's his comment. Rascal. Fool. Right? He doesn't know that if we surrender to Krishna, Krishna will give himself. So we'll come out winning, big time. So many commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, 500 different translations in English of the Bhagavad Gita. But none of them made a devotee of Krishna. Therefore, Prabhupada called Bhagavad Gita as it is. And all these other Bhagavad Gitas, they go Bhagavad Gita as it isn't. It's not the real thing. So, Maunam, Atma, Vinigraha. Atma Vinigraha means that we have to control the mind. It gets more difficult, right? Controlling the mind. Just like we chant japa, trying to chant japa, and as soon as we pick up our beads, immediately the mind is somewhere else. Yeah, immediately. So Krishna says, Yato nischalati manas chantam astram. From wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady, one must bring it back under control of the self. So this japa that we have, this is the best way to control the mind. But the japa has to be focused just on the holy name. Nothing else but the holy name. And I'll tell you an interesting way to chant japa. There's one devotee named Bhakti Tirtha Swami. And when he would chant japa, and he found he was inattentive, he would stop, and he would back up 1 or 2 beats, then he would go forward. Yeah. Just to check the mind. Otherwise, the mind just goes all over the universe. Just like. So I've been doing that for about 2 years now, and it's really good. Give it a try. You're chanting japa, you're thinking something other than Krishna, then you stop, back up 1 or 2 beats, and then go forward. Checks the mind. It's just like Krishna says, when Arjuna said, to control the mind, I think it's more difficult than control the wind. So what does Krishna say? Asangasayam mahabaho manor durnagurhamchala abhyasena tu konti vairagyena chigrihe. He says it is undoubtedly very difficult to control the mind, but it's possible by constant practice and, who knows, detachment. Practice. So what we're doing is we're practicing controlling the mind. So this, stopping and backing up and then going forward, this is practice. Practical practice on how to control the mind. Because Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said the mind is a non-devotee. Okay? It's a non-devotee. But we all know we're not supposed to associate with non-devotees. Right? We have one very close to us. And you can't get away from it. So right now our mind is in the Bhakti program. We're trying to turn our mind into a devotee. that our mind has been a non-devotee for many lifetimes. Yeah. This is not the only lifetime we've had. The mind is subtle. The brain, that's another. The brain is a muscle. Right? But the mind is subtle. We've had it for a long time. So now in this one lifetime, we're trying to turn this mind into a devotee. So you got to kind of preach to the mind. I know you don't want to chant, because it's a non-devotee. But this is the new program. If you don't chant attentively, we're going to chant more. Right? Because we're backing up now, going forward. I mentioned this one devotee in Sweden, I think. He said, if I did that, it would take me all day long to chant my 16 rounds. Because the mind is such a rascal. So to control the mind, this is another austerity. And now the last one is the most difficult. Of the, there's the austerities of the body, 5, austerities of the tongue, 5, austerity of the mind, 5, and this last one is the most difficult. And that is to have a pure mind. That is the most difficult. That's the most difficult. But Krishna, he's known as Vedyam Pavitram. He is that person who purifies. Krishna is so pure that if we connect to Krishna, we get purified. In any way we connect to Krishna, we get purified. And therefore it's stated, Brahmarpanam, Brahmavir, Brahmagna, Brahmanahutam, Brahmaivatena Gantavir, Brahmakarma Samadhina. That one who is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full concentration to spiritual activities in which that which is consumed is absolute and that which is given is of the same spiritual nature. So if whatever we're only hearing about Krishna, we're only chanting about Krishna, we're only taking Krishna prasadam, Prabhupada said, in this way we become Krishnized. We become Krishnized by this process. So we should only, nowadays, for so long, people in the morning, they're reading the morning news, right? In the evening, there's the evening news, yeah? Even some devotees there. But it's all bad news, right? Material world means bad news. But this is good news. Devotees, we get the good news. Every morning we get the good news, Srimad Bhagavatam. And then the evening, Bhagavad Gita, it's an evening news, good evening news, it's all good news. No bad news. Does anybody ever read the news and after you read the news, wow, that was very inspiring, that was enlivening? Anybody? No. It's all depressing. There's nothing good about it. In Brazil, there was one radio station called the Good News Channel. It was all just good news. Yeah, just good news. But after 6 months, they had to cancel because they ran out of good news. But the material world, there's a lot of bad news, very little good news. But this is good news. And when we're distributing books, we're just distributing good news. The good news about the soul, about Krishna. Pastimes of Krishna. So those are the 15 austerities Krishna gives us for our purification. Okay, any question or comment? Yes?
Thank you very much for your class. It was very inspiring. Sometimes when I'm chanting, I'm thinking about my service or some class I heard or something in Krishna consciousness. Do you think it's still not so favorable or is okay?
Good question. But sometimes if we're thinking about our service, then, as Prabhupada said, you can't think of two things at once. See, we're trying to hear the holy name. right? So better just also, even when you're thinking, because you start thinking about your service, then you start thinking about the details of the service, and you start thinking about persons involved with the service, and you just get more and more, distracted. So better just, just concentrate on the holy name. Prabhupada said the perfection of chanting Hare Krishna is we're thinking of the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. This is the perfection. Service is not in there. Name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. That's the perfection of chanting. Of course, we shouldn't artificially try to think of these things. That'll naturally come. But in our present state, we should just focus on the name. Just focus on the name. Okay? Good question. Any other question or comment?
You said about humility, but when we go out to distribute books, we must be sometimes need to push that. How to?
You have to be able to, sometimes when you go out on book distribution, we got be a little pushy. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said, when will I with a humble heart go out and preach the name of Krishna? So actually, humility is a big part of book distribution. Yeah. Being instruments in the hands of Krishna, that's humility. Yeah. If we get pushy, then that it gets a little passionate. Yeah. Just depend on Krishna. Cetasa sarvakarmani. Krishna says that. Just depend upon me and act under my protection. In such consciousness, be fully engaged in devotional service. So depend on Krishna. Not on our own ability, trying to force someone. The false ego sometimes gets involved. I'm gonna convince this guy to take a book. And then the person that we're speaking to, he feels the ego. This guy's not going to convince me. It becomes an ego clash. Clash of egos. No, don't depend on our own ability. Depend on Krishna. Actually, to go on book distribution, this is where we learn humility. We understand Krishna's in control. I'm not in control. And just try to work under his divine hands. Puppets in the hands of Krishna. Prabhupada said, please, Krishna, just make me a puppet in your hands. See, the karmas are puppets too. They're puppets in the hands of Maya. And we're just trying to be puppets in the hands of Krishna. Better to be puppets in the hands of Krishna. Depending on Krishna. Okay? All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.